What is the downside of not teaching kids to do chores? There definitely are some downsides. We're going to talk about that today as I share my reaction to a clip from an episode of The World's Strictest Parents that I was in back in 2009. Clip that I'm going to show you, we see Hannah, which is one of the two troubled teens that was brought to my home back in 2009 to be on this program, The World's Strictest Parents, and she is having to do some chores. The reason why she has to do some chores is because she has lost all of her privileges, but also we see James, who was the other youth that was brought to my home for that program. Both of them are 17 years old, by the way, so that's good context for you to have when you see what types of chores they're needing to do. So both of them are having some interesting reactions themselves to being told they need to do daily chores. So he needed to do daily chores. Hannah had to do some extra chores like weeding and stuff like that because she had lost her privileges the day before. And when she lost her privileges, she lost them for 24 hours. So that's our big whammy consequence in our home. And when a person loses their privileges for 24 hours, that means they work for 24 hours, except for when they're sleeping, eating their 3 meals, that kind of thing. But otherwise, they're doing chores. They're following instructions, accepting consequences by doing chores the whole day. So that's what we see in this particular clip that I'm going to be showing you here. So now look at their attitudes. Look what happens when children don't know how to work very well. They didn't get taught a good work ethic in their homes, and we hear some of their comments that definitely give us that impression.
Today, the teens will be homeschooled by Nicholeen.
Hannah. Wake up. James. It's like 7:25 right now.
But first, the entire family are expected to pull their weight with household chores.
All these lists are the chore lists. Chores are very important in our house because, number one, it keeps the house clean. And number two, it teaches us how we need to do things when we grow older.
Okay, so you see my daughter Paige here talking about our chore lists, our chore charts. And actually, I do have chore charts that I make available on the website teachingselfgovernment.com. So if you ever want to take a look at my chore charts and our jobs that we have in our job jar and stuff like that for when people earn extra chores, we have them ready to go. You're welcome to go and look at that. But what you see is I'm waking up Hannah. Now, I'm waking up Hannah and it's still dark because it wasn't fully dark, but kind of like the sun hadn't come up yet. It was like 6 something in the morning, and I took her outside to do some weeding because she had lost her privileges. Then when I woke up James, it was 7 something. It was a little bit lighter, but both of them did not want to get out of bed. Poor things, they were probably still jet lagging, which was so hard for them to have to do this whole program being jet lagged like they were. But they got up. Amazingly, they both didn't want to get up, but they didn't give me any resistance either. They just got up. And that was really great to see that they were starting off the day with being able to follow that instruction of waking up in the morning. So chores teach people how to follow instructions. So that is one of the 4 basic skills that we teach in our home. To follow instructions, a person has to do 5 things. They look at the person, keep a calm face, voice, and body, say okay or ask to disagree appropriately, do the task immediately, and then check back. So, and then the parent praises them afterward. Of course, if they don't do one of those steps, then the parent has to do a correction. These are skills that I teach on teachingselfgovernment.com, so you can learn more about them there. Anyway, they are following an instruction first thing. They're getting up. And you see, even my littlest child, little Porter, who's 5 years old at the time, he's vacuuming. My children start doing chores and working when they are very young. If not, then they start to get some of these results. So let's look at the results we see here next.
I don't think kids should do gardening. It's a boring job and kids shouldn't do boring things.
I don't think it's fair for young kids at that age to have to do chores. should be out having fun with a friend. They're annoying, it's just pointless. Not like it's not gonna get lucky again by the end of the frigging day.
Let me show you where it goes, so in case you need it again, which you might.
Okay, so Hannah says, I don't think you should have to do weeding because it's boring. You know? So if something is boring, I guess that means it's not worthwhile to do. It's a good thing that everybody doesn't think that. Otherwise, we would have a really serious problem in our societies, wouldn't we? If people didn't ever do any boring work. You see that a person gets pretty entitled, right? If they don't know how to work, then they think they shouldn't have to do anything that is the slightest bit uncomfortable. As if being uncomfortable was somehow the worst thing that could happen to you. Or, you know, having to do something that you don't want to do. Somehow, that's the worst thing ever. So when I took her outside, you know, to pull some weeds, I took her to the worst and weediest place in our whole yard because I knew there would be weeds there that we could work on for a while. Now, it was a beautiful thing that happened. So that was her first response. I think, you know, I had her go there and start weeding, and they filmed her as I walked off to get my gloves and things like that, and heard comments and probably asked her what she thought about it, is my guess. So that's when we heard those comments, because I didn't hear a lot of those comments when we were working together. So when we were working together, she was just pulling the weeds, and she and I were talking about life. We were talking about her daughter, Tanisha. We were talking about her family, and we were talking about, you know, just each other. We were getting to know each other. It was the perfect opportunity to get to know each other. Do you know working with someone creates a more lasting memory than even playing with that person creates? It does. The memories that I have with my parents that are the most dear to me are things like helping paint fences, covering a roof that we're, you know, re-roofing in a rainstorm, peeling pears, paring pears, doing canning, baking bread. Those are the things I remember with my parents even more than the trips and the special times of going to Disneyland and stuff like that people think will create the biggest memories. It's the everyday things. It's the working together that creates strong bonds. So if you don't have the opportunity to work with your children, if you don't bring them along with you and teach them to work with you, then you're missing out on developing a strong bond. It was at that time on that hill in the yard that Hannah actually decided that I was an okay person. Now, that doesn't mean she stopped pushing against me completely. There was still a little bit that happened after that, but she decided that it was okay what we were doing, that I was okay. Now, it talked about how I was homeschooling my children and how I would homeschool Hannah and James that day. I did homeschool them that day. They had a couple of other outbursts, and you'll probably see some more of that in a different reaction video, and if you watch the program. But they thought it was interesting to be homeschooled. The whole concept seemed so strange to them. You know, I'm filming this after we've had a time in history with the COVID pandemic where people have homeschooled their children, like the whole world homeschooled all at the same time. So now it doesn't seem quite so strange, but it was something that I felt like I wanted to do for my children. They were exceptionally smart, and I didn't want them to be bored at school, and I wanted the family bonds, to be honest. And so part of school day is working, and that's one thing that we've been able to do because we do own all of our education time, so we can have some time dedicated to developing life skills. So what I saw very quickly was that Hannah and James lacked basic life skills. In fact, there was a time when James was told he needed to clean the bathroom, and he did not know how to do it. He's 17. So Spencer trained him on how to clean a bathroom. Now, let me tell you a neat thing. After he cleaned that bathroom, he came to me and he's like, Nicholeen, come look at this. Come look at this. So I went to go look at it, and he's like, look how I did this. Look how this shines, you know. And then he said, I can't wait to do this at home. I can't wait to show my mom this. She's going to die. That's called confidence. Because he learned a skill, he had confidence in himself. Now, the whole first day was all about appearance and everything, and they were so worried about how they look, and they're trying to get their confidence from all their looks. But by the time we're at day 2 and we're working, now we're getting confidence from something else, from what we're able to accomplish and who we really are, not just what we look like, which is super powerful. So what is the downside of not teaching kids to do chores? The downside is they miss out on the confidence. They miss out on the bonding and relationship time that they have when they work with you. They miss the life skills. They feel entitled and selfish. And like boredom or some menial task like pulling weeds or sweeping something is somehow abusive. James said, I don't think kids should have to do this. They're so young, they should be out playing with their friends. Well, my children do play with their friends, but that doesn't mean that they can't do chores too. So I think people think if you play, then you don't work. And if you work, then you don't play. That's a very aristocratic mindset when it comes to work. In America, the American dream has always been that you work to make yourself into who you want to be. That means everyone has to have a good work ethic. And in our family, that's important. So we've taught our children how to work, how to love it, and how to succeed by the sweat of their brow and the strength of their hands. What types of chores did you do as a child? Or what types of chores do your children do? Could they do harder chores? What do you think? If you have a question about whether a chore might be too hard for a child, put it in the comments. I'll be happy to answer that question for you as I get to them. And if you liked this reaction video, give it a thumbs up. Maybe share it with some people. If you want to find more out about teaching your children self-mastery and strengthening their confidence, building stronger united family relationships, then be sure to visit teachingselfgovernment.com, which is where all of the Teaching Self-Government courses, resources, and freebies are.